he invited me to form a unity government. We agreed that we'd be able to continue to criticize each other on issues on which we don't agree. But these issues are so important in their way of unifying our country. We need in this country to reach a point where we love our children more than we hate each other.
Ain't nothing changed, nothing new here to see. This ain't nothing but some political maneuvering.
America.
Welcome to the eulogy, eat it up. It's called political buffoonery.
Hey there, everybody, and welcome to This Week in DUMBmocracy, where we showcase some of the dumbest newsmakers of the week. What we said might happen actually did happen for once. We were one of many outlets out there, big and small and all sizes in between, that got the feeling that RFK Jr. was going to suspend his campaign and endorse Donald Trump. Well, last Friday, that's exactly what we got. Kinda, sort of. You see, RFK Jr. decided to suspend his campaign in 10 different battleground states that the parties agreed would be up for grabs in the 2024 election, and where RFK Jr. would have taken votes away from Donald Trump. And since that Friday celebration and the love-in and the speech by RFK Jr., which, by the way, check out if you missed it from Friday, very good speech, we've now come to learn the rationale of how this came about. And RFK Jr. is out there on the weekend talk shows talking about a unity government if and when Donald Trump is reelected to office. What does that mean, and how did this unlikely alliance come about? We're going to discuss that by looking at RFK Jr.'s interview with Fox News Sunday. But before we do all that, please subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. And if you like what you're seeing here in this or any other video on the channel, you guys know what to do already. You got to smash that thumbs up button, like, comment, share the show with your friends, all that really good stuff, because all that's going to feed the YouTube algorithm.
What?
Feed me!
Okay.
As always, gang, thank you guys so much for all that you do to help grow the channel. I appreciate all of your efforts. We are one subscriber away from 2,300 subscribers as we tape this video. Maybe I'm talking to number 2,300 right now, because if you're a newbie to the channel, I hope this video earns your subscription, and we will celebrate that little victory, because that's what we do on this channel. But I hope I earn your subscription in discussing this unlikely pairing of RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. Now, many of my friends have asked me over the weekend, how does either RFK Jr. and Donald Trump justify not being hypocrites for creating this alliance? After all, on social media, they traded more than a few heavy jabs and punches at each other, calling each other different names and really discrediting each other. Well, I'm glad that people asked that question, because they know that I'm an expert in hypocrisy, because I wrote the book on it, and it's called Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, A Field Guide to Identifying Political Buffoons. That's available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. The difference between hypocrisy and good faith changes of mind or capitulation is the good faith of the person doing the capitulation. In this case, both RFK Jr. and Donald Trump came together and agreed to work together because of a common goal and common agreement. Let's discuss that. Well, actually, I should say, let's let RFK Jr. discuss that right now.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way up front. You and President Trump not always fans of each other. He posted on social media earlier this year, he's one of the most liberal lunatics ever to run for office. A phony radical left fool whose poll numbers are terrible and getting worse. The New Yorker said just a couple of weeks ago this: in a recent text exchange, Kennedy told one person that Trump was a terrible human being, the worst president ever and barely human. He is probably a sociopath.
They're enemies, not friends.
Not exactly the words of people who will eventually become allies, right? In fact, they were pretty strong condemnations of each other, right? Trump, in his brash and braggadocious way, talking about RFK Jr., RFK Jr. privately texting friends his feelings, neither one of them pulling punches. So how did this alliance come about?
I haven't read your text, so you can speak to that, but how did you get from that position to Friday night?
Well, you know, it became clear to me that I did not have a path to victory. 16 months of censorship, of not being able to get on any network really except for Fox. And I had, in fact, when Ross Perot ran, in the 10 months that he ran, he had 34 appearances on the networks. I had 2 appearances in 16 months. So I was blocked out from the networks. I was blocked out from the debate. I had no path to victory. President Trump had been reaching out to me. And I talked to him a few hours after the assassination attempt, and we had a long conversation by phone. I then had 2 extensive meetings, and there were issues, the broad issues that were most important to me, the ones that brought me into the campaign, which was ending the Ukraine war, ending the censorship, and protecting children's health. We're all reforming our food supply, all the things that we need to do to make our children healthy again. Those are all things that President Trump also wanted to work on. And he invited me to form a unity government. We agreed that we'd be able to continue to criticize each other on issues on which we don't agree. But these issues are so important in their way of unifying our country. We need in this country to reach a point where we love our children more than we hate each other.
That's beautiful, man.
What a great line. So there's a lot to unpack here in discerning the difference between hypocrisy and thoughtful reconsideration. I think that's what RFK Jr. did. He took an internal look, he looked inside, and he said, you know what? I ain't going nowhere with this campaign. I can't win. And it's not because I have the wrong message. It's because there are external forces against me. The media, the Democrat Party. Although I kind of repeat myself there, right? Because they kind of work hand in hand together. He was shut out of left-leaning media. He said that he can only get on outlets like Fox News and I guess News Nation as well. So in that thoughtful reconsideration, he reached out to Donald Trump, and instead of believing the hype and believing all the reputation discrediting and all the nonsense out there and all the talk about MAGA and all that stuff coming from the left, he decided to investigate for himself, and he had extensive meetings with Donald Trump. And it turns out they agreed on some key issues that are near and dear to RFK Jr. He mentioned them himself. The war in Ukraine and ending that. The issues with censorship in media that he was talking about. Of course, they have commonality on that. Donald Trump is at war with the media constantly over the past almost decade now. And then issues involving children's health and our food supply and how they're interrelated. It seems like they found common ground on these issues. And in that search for unity, RFK Jr. realized that he had attained an ally that would be able to help him effectuate the change that he wanted to do had he become president. That is America. That is certainly not his hypocrisy. That is working through personality, getting beyond personality, getting beyond vitriol, and coming to common ground and see how we can help each other together, raise everyone up together, unify together. Pretty cool stuff, if you ask me. This is old school politics at work here. This is people reaching out from both sides of the aisle, coming together to see what we can accomplish together, rather than continuing to divide us into different segments of society.
It's a good unifying theme that I think a lot of people could get around. It's how we get there. That's always the devil is in the details. Have you all negotiated over or talked about a cabinet position, another position within a Trump government in exchange for your endorsement?
No, there's been no commitments. But I met with President Trump, with his family, with his closer advisors, and we just made a general commitment that we were going to work together.
And that's old school as well. This is about honor. The honor of a handshake between two old school people. The commitment that they give to each other on their word that they will work together on those specific issues where they agree, and then they can go at it on issues where they disagree. There isn't enough of this in politics in this day and age. It's all horse trading, and it's all grift, and it's all what can you do for me and what I can do for you, and exchanging of favors and promises. But in this case, it's I will keep to my word. I'm not giving you anything, RFK Jr. And RFK Jr. apparently is not expecting anything from Trump. And this is a throwback to how government operated when both sides came in good faith and came together to deal with issues rather than personalities. It's a beautiful thing to see here. I am white-pilled by this union. I don't know if they're going to win or not, because there is a Democrat monolith out there, that is the Harris-Walz campaign, that doesn't operate as honorably, I would say, that they certainly play hide the ball. They play hide the candidate a lot as well. Where's the interview with Kamala Harris, right? And they seem to be the antithesis of unity. They seem to be intent on dividing based upon President Trump's personality, based upon RFK Jr.'s weird behavior, whatever you want to call it. And it seems like we're seeing a clear divide, or at least a clear narrative divide, between the dark side and the light side, depending upon who you ask here. But at this moment, the light belongs to the unifying message of RFK Jr. and Donald Trump.
What about the states where you're trying to get off of a number of swing state ballots to say, I'm going to stay on a number of state ballots, but in these swing states, I'm going to try to withdraw myself and ask my supporters, or at least you're telling them, think about supporting President Trump. Did you negotiate over which states you would try to withdraw from?
Yeah, I mean, we all knew which states they were. There basically is 10 swing states where my presence in the race would have helped Vice President Harris and would have harmed President Trump. So I'm going to get off the ballot in those states, and then we're going to stay on the ballot in 30 states. And, you know, I'm encouraging people to vote for me in those states. Those are states where the votes, they're either all red or all blue states, where their votes are not going to change the outcome of the race. But in the states where I would have been a spoiler, I'm going to get out. So it's about 10 states.
Okay.
This is brilliant, because, you know, based upon our discussions on Behind Enemy Lines, and by the way, I'm going to link that discussion in the upper right-hand corner right now. Myself and Ross Galloway, we were talking about, well, if RFK Jr. endorses Trump, then the Democrats are going to fight like hell to keep RFK Jr. on the ballot in many states as a way to pull votes away from Trump.
The irony will be this: if RFK Jr. comes out on Friday and endorses Donald Trump, the Democrats will go back to court in various states to ensure that RFK Jr.'s name remains on the ballot in order to draw votes away from Trump, because their only goal is power.
It seems like both Trump and RFK Jr. recognize this and came to an agreement about a certain amount of states that are battlegrounds where RFK Jr. will not be pulling votes away from Trump, but he's staying on the ballot in some 30 other states, which may pull votes away from Kamala Harris. Who knows? It certainly seems like a joint strategy, because as we saw in another video from last week, where Nicole Shanahan, RFK Jr.'s VP pick, was discussing the campaign and what to do, laid it as a binary choice. And by the way, I'm going to put that in the upper right-hand corner as well. The choice was stay in the race and possibly give Kamala Harris the win that she needs for the Democrat Party, who, by the way, I think Nicole Shanahan has a vendetta against, or get out of the race and help Donald Trump as much as possible to stop Kamala Harris and the Democrats that work so hard to destroy, shadow ban, and lawfare the RFK Jr. campaign. It seems like that choice was made in favor of Donald Trump. Nicole Shanahan is probably getting her way on that, and maybe this idea of vendetta that we're throwing out there has some legs to it.
So there were reports a couple weeks ago citing an official from your camp and also a Democratic official saying that there'd been outreach to the Harris camp as well to possibly discuss you working within the Harris administration in exchange for an endorsement of her. Is that true? And what happened with that?
I reached out to them on the same basis that I reached out to President Trump, and we actually talked to other presidential candidates, including Chase Oliver and the Libertarian Party, about figuring out ways that we could end the polarization and the hatred and the vitriol, start talking about issues.
And by the way, Nicole Shanahan said in the video we talked about last week that there was zero contact between the Harris campaign and RFK Jr.'s campaign. Zero, none, nada.
Flashback.
All right, there were rumors going around that RFK was in talks with Trump, that he was in talks with the Harris camp for a potential endorsement to either of them if they could give him, I presume, a spot in one of their cabinets. Is there any truth to it? Would love to hear about that.
Definitely not in talks with Harris. Definitely never
have brought up this idea of an endorsement with Harris. Definitely have never brought up a cabinet position with Harris. So those are the MSN just taking something and spinning it in a way that makes, their chosen political group look good. Fake news.
End of flashback.
Although the RFK Jr. campaign put out to every campaign that they're willing to talk about issues, which is basically what RFK Jr. said, but he sort of sidestepped talking about the Harris campaign and any exchange of quid pro quo there at all, which turns out, according to Nicole Shanahan from last week's video, that there was no engagement whatsoever.
And, I was welcome to listen to anything from the Democrats that they were going to do something about the war, about the Ukraine war, about the censorship, about the child health crisis, this epidemic of chronic disease that has now disabled about 60% of our kids. And, when my uncle was President Shannon, only 6% of Americans had chronic disease. Today, over 60% do. And, it's hard to find a kid today that's not been damaged by it. And it's coming from our food supply, from pollution in our environment, from toxics in our environment, and mainly from corruption in our government that allows that to happen.
And RFK Jr. and Donald Trump seem to have that as common as well, to root out corruption, or as Trump liked to say, drain the swamp. They seem to have that in common as well. They're against cronyism, they're against corruption, and they want government to function as it should, to the benefit of the people, not necessarily to special interests and big money out there. Big pharma out there is one example that RFK Jr. talks about, and also the war machine that seems to just keep on chugging forward under Democratic rule. If you remember from Donald Trump, we didn't start any new wars. There was no new offensive maneuvering in the world. Russia was not going at Ukraine. Israel was not under constant attack.
Peace in our time. Imagine that.
That seems to be another commonality between RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. And when we come back from the break, we're going to continue with this interview. Like what you see so far? Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. Also, leave us a comment and tell us what you're thinking. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss another show.
Both you and Nicole Shanahan, your running mate, have talked about how you feel like the Democrats completely mistreated you, excluded you from the process. How much of your decision Friday is about revenge or motivated by punishing Democrats in some way?
Zero. I don't act in anything in my life. I don't act out of anger or revenge or resentment. It's a bad motivation. It's like swallowing poison and hoping someone else will die. And so I don't do it. I am very pragmatic and practical, and I am focused on one thing, which is how do we restore health for our children? And that touches many, many other issues. How do we regenerate our soils in this country? How do we protect small family farmers? The incentives are all going to commodity agriculture, and that's what is feeding this chronic disease epidemic, the processed foods that are created by commodity agriculture. So we need to do all of these things at once. Protect small farmers, restore our soils, regenerative agriculture, and to get the corruption out of the federal government and make these agencies do what they were created to do, which is to protect our health and not serve the mercantile interests of the pharmaceutical companies and the processed food industry.
That's a very interesting point, because I heard more than a sense of resentment in Nicole Shanahan's interview from last week before this endorsement occurred. RFK Jr. seems to be very pragmatic. He says he is, at least, in discussing politics, and he doesn't believe in poisoning the rhetoric and creating vendetta, which I think that Nicole Shanahan seems to feel deep down inside, given the tenor of that interview we saw with Tom Bilyeu last week. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys. Let's make this the question of the day. Do you think that there is a vendetta between the RFK Jr. campaign, maybe not necessarily RFK Jr., but his campaign and the Democrats, and how much did that vitriol influence his decision to go and unify with Donald Trump? Let me know what you think in the comments about that.
This decision is not without personal cost for you. Your own family went to the White House on St. Patrick's Day, took a huge picture with President Biden, made clear who they were supporting. Friday night, your siblings issued this statement. We believe in Harrison Waltz. Our brother Bobby's decision to endorse Trump today is a betrayal of the values that our father and our family hold most dear. You posted on X Friday night saying you're grateful to your amazing wife because the decision that you've made is one that she's uncomfortable with. So talk to us about the personal backlash you have to deal with in moving forward.
I mean, my family is at the center of the Democratic Party. I have 5 members of my family that are working for the Biden administration. President Biden has a bust of my father behind him at the Oval Office. He's been a family friend for many, many years. And my family is, I understand that they're troubled by my decisions, but, I love my family. I feel like we were raised in a milieu where we were encouraged to debate each other and debate ferociously and passionately about things, but to still love each other. So, they can, they're free to take their positions on these issues. There are many, many members of my family who are working in my campaign, who are supporting me. I have a very big family. There's a few of them that are troubled. But, I think we all need to be able to disagree with each other and still love each other.
What a great answer. What a generous answer towards his family. So certainly a lot more generosity than his family has shown RFK Jr. Certainly much more generous than that. This generosity to his family is how we should all respond when we're at the dinner table discussing politics. It's not a blood sport when it comes to your family members. You can discuss vociferously, passionately, argue your points, but don't make it personal. If your crazy uncle, which, by the way, I'm that crazy uncle to my nephew, starts talking about politics at the table, I'm not looking to convince anyone. I'm looking to say my piece with respect and to give my family members their respect in talking about it. And yes, it certainly turns heated at the Berardelli house sometimes in discussing politics, and we do get out of control sometimes. But at the end of the day, we put it aside and we remember that we're a family and that we all stick together. I'm sure that's the same way that RFK Jr. is approaching this. Maybe his nephews and his siblings are not doing it that way. I don't know, but it's none of my business how his family's handling it. To the extent that they want to make it public and try to hurt his campaign and hurt his crusade on these issues that he's so passionate about, yeah, that's not cool. And I certainly applaud RFK Jr. for not getting down in the mud and going after those family members for trying to stop his personal passions here. But this is more of like the classic liberal answer of, I love my family, I respect my family, I'm going to do what I want to do anyway. It's a great answer.
Wall Street Journal has this. They say it's a double-edged sword, essentially, that it may help President Trump to pick up some of your followers if they're willing to go over there. But they warn about what you would do in his administration. They say this: RFK Jr., if he's anywhere near the healthcare or environmental agencies in a Trump administration, look out. Mr. Trump's best response is to thank RFK Jr. for his support, make no promises about the future, and by all means avoid joint campaign appearances. You've already had one. Will you have others? Will you campaign for President Trump?
I'm going to be campaigning actively. I think President Trump is going to make a series of announcements about other Democrats who are joining his campaign, and I want to make America healthy again, and so does President Trump. So.
Make America healthy again. That may be the sub-platform that RFK Jr. is going to be going out there on the campaign trail about. A message that should resonate with families of young children. A message that should resonate with the Midwest, with farmers out there as well. Seems like a win-win, and I tend to disagree with the Wall Street Journal here. I think RFK Jr. will be an asset if utilized properly on the campaign trail.
Those are objectives. The Wall Street Journal may be worried about shareholder value for pharmaceutical companies, and I think, I talked specifically to President Trump about that issue, and he said that he wanted to leave as his legacy healthy children, and that that he was unconcerned about the other implications.
All right, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., thank you for your time today. We'll see you on the campaign trail then.
Well, all right then. Seems like the classic liberalism that we not the woke progressivism, but the classic liberalism of RFK Jr. may become an asset in drawing in more of these Main Street Democrats that people like to talk about, the more moderate Democrat, into the Trump fold. It's a great comparison. It's a great way to hold a mirror up to the progressive left to show them what a classic liberal looks like. The liberal that's against corruption, that's against cronyism, that's against the big corporations out there just making money to the detriment of the American people. That's what liberalism used to be. It's now been taken over a lot by Republicans as the left has gone further left into the lunacy that they've become. Before we leave this topic, I just want to touch on one other thing that RFK Jr. said this past weekend. And that's what about he believes MAGA really means. He put out this post. Is it still called a tweet? I don't know. This post on X. The phrase has troubled liberals who think it is a call for a return to an America before civil rights, gay rights, and women's rights. But I have a more generous interpretation, one that is truer to my experience of Donald Trump as he is today. Make America Great Again recalls a nation brimming with vitality, with a can-do spirit, with hope and a belief in itself. It was an America that was beginning to confront its darker shadows, could acknowledge the injustice in its past and present, yet at the same time could celebrate its successes. It was a nation of broad prosperity, the world's most vibrant middle class, and an idealistic belief, though not consistently applied, in freedom, justice, and democracy. It was a nation that led the world in innovation, productivity, and technology. And it was the healthiest country in the world. I have talked to many Trump supporters. I have talked to his inner circle. I have talked to the man himself. This is the America they want to restore. It certainly is a more optimistic sentiment than Democrats would normally give to the phrase "Make America Great Again." For me, it's a throwback to this thing right over here. I don't know if you see the poster up there, but that is a poster, an actual poster from the 1984 campaign of Ronald Reagan talking about "Let's make America great again." It was a message of optimism that we're not there yet as a nation, but we're going to get there as long as we keep moving forward in the ideals of limited government and less intrusiveness into our lives and equal rights for all. It was that message that led to a landslide for Ronald Reagan in '84. Hopefully, we're going to see history repeat itself again with that message. RFK Jr., as it turns out, is a true believer. He has his passions, Ukraine, freedom of speech, and not being censored and suppressed by the mainstream media. The need to be a healthier America, to make America healthy again. And in connection with that, looking towards our food supply to see what can be done to make America healthier through reimagining our food supply and also reimagining the healthcare system itself to treat chronic illnesses and to address that rather than the big ticket pharmaceutical items that we see this day. It's a message of optimism that RFK Jr. is infusing into an already optimistic Trump campaign. The Democratic Party like to talk about they're the party of joy coming out of the DNC. But they're also the party of the millionaires and billionaires speaking on stage telling everybody to watch out for the millionaires and billionaires. It's also the party that condemned, Trump as an abuser, as according to that civil trial with E. Jean Carroll, yet puts Bill Clinton on stage, center stage, and applauds him vociferously. It's a party of contradictions, but most importantly, for our discussion, it's the party of hypocrisy by shunning away RFK, much like they did to Tulsi Gabbard, much like they did to Elon Musk, and pushing them into the hands of Donald Trump. Donald Trump hopefully gets a bump out of this. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with it. I discussed in the video that we did behind enemy lines last Thursday that he should see a 2% bump or something like that as we go forward. But with RFK Jr. on the trail, hopefully that bump gets sustained and grows over time. And we may look back at this moment from last Friday as the difference maker in the 2024 election. But listen, hey, that's just my opinion on things. I got no inside information on this, but I do want to know what you guys think about this RFK Jr. endorsement, the strategy, and his rationale. Do you think that RFK Jr. and Donald Trump are hypocrites for going at each other so hard and then coming together like this? Or do you think that there was thoughtful reconsideration on both sides and that they're both now acting honorably, giving each other their word that they're going to do what they plan on doing? Get into the comments together and let's discuss it. And as always, like and share this video with your friends, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. I'll see you guys later on today in those comments discussing this topic, as well as all the other shenanigans and buffoonery happening every day this week in DUMBmocracy.
All views and opinions expressed here are not necessarily of the mainstream media and may offend some listeners. It's called political buffoonery.